Welcome to the Grace Story Podcast, where inspiring stories are brought to life. This podcast is made possible by Grace College and Seminary, located on the shores of Winona Lake in the great state of Indiana. I'm your host, Dr. Drew Flam. This is the Grace Story Podcast. Today, our guest on the podcast is Professor Christy Walters. Professor Walters is an assistant professor of exercise science and the director for the exercise science program at Grace College. She hails from Angola, Indiana, where she was a three-sport athlete in high school. Professor Walters continued her athletic career at Indiana Wesleyan University, where she was an all-conference softball player. After earning her bachelor's degree, she went on to earn an MS in athletic training from Ohio University. And before moving into her current role as a professor at Grace, she was an athletic trainer for the Lancers. Christy, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Drew.
Okay, so the only letters I mentioned in your bio were the MS, the Masters of Science.
Yep.
But you have a bunch of other letters after your name that I don't know what they mean. So you have LAT and FMS. What do those mean?
So LAT is licensed athletic trainer. So that means that I'm licensed in the state of Indiana, so I can practice as an athletic trainer.
I thought maybe you meant like strong lats or
right,
something like
exactly,
that.
Exactly, LAT. And then FMS is I'm a certified functional movement specialist. And then I actually have another credential because I'm also a certified functional strength coach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I've taken a couple trainings over the years to pursue this direction of functional movement. And it's really a progressive movement. People are shifting their focus from what they would have called traditional exercise to a functional-based training.
What does that mean, functional-based training or functional movement?
Excellent question. So if you think about your life and the activities that you do, why don't we, or even sports for that matter, why don't we train the way we actually participate? So we're basing it on function. So like if I'm going to jump, for example, I need to be training my squat to reflect the same movement as that jump. Or I need to do core exercises that are functional, so meaning that core exercise is not laying on my back, training my core, but no, I'm going to be kind of standing upright and asking my body to maintain core stability while I'm moving, or moving a weight, maybe across my body, and saying, hey, provide that stability core while I do this movement, which is so much of what athletics.
Gotcha, because we don't do sit-ups when we are
No.
playing basketball.
Correct.
We do some twisting movements,
Yep.
while we're pivoting or
Yep.
whatever it is.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any good functional movements for when I take the chip from the bag to my mouth most evenings, or is that not in the...
I think there was a commercial about finger push-ups.
There you go. That's what I need.
Yeah. Maybe that'll help
I'll be
you.
working on that one tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So when did you first become interested in this world of exercise science?
Wow, that goes back to when I was in high school, actually, or just before I went to high school. And I ended up having a labral tear to my shoulder. And that kind of wrecks your world when you're...
Everything when it comes to sports, yeah.
Yep. I was about 14, going to be 15. I was headed into going to probably be on varsity for every sport I was going into, and ended up couldn't like my shoulder was dislocated, so then I had to go through rehab, and then eventually had to have surgery to repair my labrum. Well, this kind of ends up being some of my personal story too, because if I would not have had that experience, I probably would not have gone to a youth conference during the winter break and totally dedicated my life to serving God. So I look at that time as, like, now I look back at that time and I'm like, wow, Lord, you got a hold of me in the best way possible. You removed my desire to be, an all-star athlete and replaced it with a desire to be an all-star Christian. And then even as a result of that, I learned how to work. I had to reestablish how to throw, how to shoot, how to hit a volleyball. And then I still ended up being a successful athlete and moving on to a college experience. But my faith was real. It was deeper. It was established and rooted and not in anything of this world. So that ends up being like the climax to me, of like that moment where you come to know Christ. But in that process, I was exposed to physical therapy, exercise, recovery, injury, all of the things that go along with that. from a personal experience. So then when I went to college, I was like, what do I want to do? And I talked to my advisor, who was Adam Thompson at the time, and he was like, I think you'd like athletic training. I think you would like this. And so I, of course, go to first class, and I was like, I love this. What are you talking about? Like you're discovering that injuries can be healed, and then how to diagnose them, how to work with them. Working with athletes is always fun. You just, when you're an athlete and you work with athletes, you just have like this common bond.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of started there. And then I knew at the end of my undergrad, I wasn't done with school. So I applied to grad school. I went to Ohio University for 2 years, which they had a 1-year program, 2-year program. So I did a thesis on top of, I worked as an athletic trainer at the same time as going to school. And then it was a good experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you said in high school you were a 3-sport athlete.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Volleyball.
Basketball, softball.
Okay. So all three
yeah.
of those. Wow. And then when you went on to college, softball was the one that you focused on then. Was that your primary sport?
Well, we had a really good basketball team when I was growing up. And then, so I always thought I'd go to play basketball, but one of my coaches said, hey, you need to realize you're really good at softball. And I was like, okay, but I mean, I just enjoyed it. I loved it. And I think I just understood the game really well. So then, I got recruited, and I found a place that I felt very much like the way I feel Grace is right now. I felt like, wow, there's a lot of people like me, and I can play at the next level and grow in Christ and have an education. And so I was like, that's a good fit for me.
That's awesome. What position?
I was a shortstop and a pitcher, but then in college, in order to make the lineup, you have to hit and play wherever the coach puts you.
That's right.
So I became an outfielder, and then I landed in right field, and I loved it. It was so much fun.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was good.
And then Ohio University with the Bobcats, right?
Yeah, wow, that's good.
All right. Trying to think of my my mascots there. And then you moved into athletic training as a career to start with. Was Grace the first place you landed after Ohio University, or
nope.
Did you? Okay.
I ended up in Indianapolis. I worked for a company called Methodist Sports Medicine, and then I worked at Avon High School. So that, I was contracted to Avon High School, which is like the largest
that's a big one.
largest school in Indiana. You're like, oh my word. So that was an adjustment. I had never lived in Indy, although I was an Indiana native. But so I learned about that, and then I actually wasn't planning on coming to Grace, but I got a phone call from a local physical therapist, Tom Johnson.
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Clint Johnson's dad, for those who know Clint Dog.
Yep. And one of my friends from undergrad had turned down the position and recommended me for it. So he called me, and I was blown away by that, and I thought, wow, the Lord is really calling me to this place if they call me. So I ended up interviewing, and I saw the opportunity to lead a program that really needed someone to step in and contribute to the success of the athletes. And I was pretty excited because the first year I joined, the men's basketball team won conference. And so I told Coach K, I was like, it's because I got your guys back out there.
Right,
yeah.
That's right.
It was a tease. I mean, they did all the work, but I really had a good time working with our sports programs. And we established a culture of for athletic training. Like, a lot of people didn't know how to utilize the trainer. They didn't understand, like, you come and you can get help, and then we can also guide you into the next phase of help. And so I pretty much started a program because I was the first full-time athletic trainer that they had.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I ended up doing the job by myself. There was supposed to be another person, but he left. And then I was by myself. So I was carrying the load of all these sports teams. Oh my, it was a lot. Eventually they got me another person to help. And, but yeah, I started just working with our athletes. An ankle sprain sometimes can take like a week recovery, or can take 3 weeks recovery.
Sure. But
somebody has to mentor you through that process. And a college kid often doesn't know what to do. I mean, not everybody majors in the human body and understanding why injuries happen and how you treat them. So just helping in little ways makes a big difference in recovery.
So it sounds like you kind of expanded the role from just, hey, I tape your ankles.
Yep.
To let me educate you
Right.
on, whether it's injury prevention or quicker recovery or, hey, you have a particular movement that tends to create, problems for you. Let's think about how we can train differently. I mean, is that kind of what you're saying?
You
Like
got
expand it? Okay.
Yeah, and at that time we didn't have a strength coach either. So I helped step in and say to some of our coaches, hey, we need to be doing some exercises this way. And you nailed it with the movement analysis of like, hey, this movement's probably causing this tendonitis.
Sure.
And let's recover in that way. So, it was a journey. So I did that job for 4 years. And then I just felt like, I wasn't sure did I want to stay? Did I want to continue? I mean, I was really wrestling with what do I want to do? I was pretty tired because I had done that job a couple of years by myself. But then Dr. Daryl Johnson asked me, hey, would you be interested in applying for this program director position for exercise science? And I said, oh, you're going to open up a program. And so, I looked at it and I thought, well, there's a lot more you can be doing with this program. So naturally, I was like intrigued, and I love puzzles and problems. And so I'm like, let's solve the problem. And sure enough, I consulted my family. I said, what do you think? Should I apply for this? And they were like, yeah, go for it. Let God shut the door. So sure enough, I apply, and they were like, well, we like your ideas. Would you like to do this? Oh, man. So then I make this transition to leading this program and looking heavily at the curriculum and trying to plan out what's the best path for our students and how do we develop them into the kind of professionals that go and be successful in the workplace. And exercise science, to me, is very hard for people to understand. You don't think of exercise science and think, oh, yeah, I know what that is. Different than like surgeon. Okay, yeah, you got that. That's easy.
Yeah.
Or so my goal was to figure out how do I help kids because basically exercise science is you're laying a foundation. You're giving them all these types of information and knowledge to grow into a professional that they choose the track. The way I describe it is we have an umbrella and we have lots of different careers under the umbrella, and you have to figure out which one do you want to grab onto and chase after.
So you, a couple of things I picked up there is one, you're a builder. It sounds like, come in, build the athletic training program. So you kind of like that, like, give me a box of nuts and screws and bolts, and I'll figure out how to build something. Just tell me a little bit about the transition from being a doer, like working with the athletes and actually doing, to becoming a teacher and mentor. And what you have liked about that transition from doing to teaching.
Well, to be honest, I really miss the doing. I really miss the hands-on clinical aspect of meeting with students who are in a moment that you could almost change their life because they're when injury happens to a person, believe it or not, they wrestle with their identity. And they go down to the depths of like, who am I? Because I was a basketball player and now I can't play. And so you get to be the person that kind of walks them through that moment and say, okay, we're going to work on this and this,
Wow.
We're going to get you back. But in the process, and that's the advantage of being a Christian too, is you get to walk with them during that. I think it's a spiritual moment, and say, hey, let's check where is our identity?
Yeah.
Is it in the Lord? Is it in your occupation, your career, your whatever you're choosing? So I miss that time with them. I really miss that mentorship. But the thing is that the way that I learned and the way I grew in my profession, I was primed to be a person that says, okay, everybody, we're in a classroom now, so let's talk through these experiences that I've had, and let's see these objectives of learning, understand why they're important. And now you're going to have to learn components of the body and evaluation or assessment and even prescription, because we prescribe exercise a lot. And how do you prescribe that? And how do you treat your patient? And so now I'm kind of looking at it at a lens where all right, how do I build somebody into being a good caregiver? So that's how I see that, like mixing. I couldn't have been a good teacher if I wasn't a caregiver first. And so I've just used that and used my stories. My students laugh all the time. They're like, you have a story for every injury that we go over. And I was like, yeah. I do.
I either experienced it or I helped somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
Something I'm not sure I would have put together beforehand, but it was just really profound is that, when an athlete has an injury, you're getting to the core of their identity, which really gets then to like, you can sell our exercise science program, which I want you to do here in a second.
Yeah.
But start with the biblical foundation part, because that sounds like there's a strong biblical integration. I mean, this isn't just counseling for their ankle and fixing that problem. It's about the soul part as well. So talk about kind of the biblical foundations of your program, and then, 17-year-old walks into your office and says, I think I'm interested in exercise science. I hurt my shoulder when I was 14. And so sell them on the program.
Okay. So I've thought a lot about what it means to be a caregiver. And caregiving can look like a lot of different things. But if you're going to be a professional in an environment, let's say you're going to be a physical therapist or you're going to be an exercise physiologist, even a personal trainer. What you're doing is you're providing a service to another person. And there's this combination of biblical truth that you provide. Like, truth means like I tell you the truth, but I do it in love. I do it in respect, and I communicate. And I guess like this is a tough question because the spiritual side is hard to unearth in you, because I do this because I love people and I want them to experience the way God intended their body to move, and we know that the body can heal because God knows how to heal people, but it's not always going to look like a miracle. So if we do what we understand that God gave us knowledge, He gave us information, and now I provide this service to another person, we're caring for them, we're respecting them, we're loving them. And when I don't give what I have, then I'm not being faithful. And I have some of this knowledge. So I'm like, I got to be faithful at sharing this and helping others realize, okay, there are times when you have to have hard conversations with people and say, your lifestyle is not reflecting your belief. And it's appropriate for us to discuss that, because I'm here to help you, not here to shame you, not here to hold you accountable. I will hold you accountable, but not to like say, okay, you have to do this and show me the evidence.
Yes.
Like it has to come from a place of shepherding. And I really think that's the key word, is we're shepherding people just the way God shepherds us. He knows our names. He knows what we're up to. And He tries to lead us to where we need to be.
Wow. And
that's where I feel like that's my goal in the program. And if you're going to come in and talk with me, I'm going to say, well, what drew you to exercise science? And most of the time I'm like, well, I've had an experience. And I'm like, okay, well, that experience has shaped you. How do you want to become a person that shapes others? And is the person that says, I'm competent to know how to help you in your moments of great need? Because in our moments of great need, we're vulnerable, we're scared, we don't know what to do, and we need someone to guide us. And that's where I'm like, okay, the more that I work at knowing what's the right evidence-based practice, what's the right special test, or what's the right exercise to prescribe to this person, the more I pour into their life. And it also opens an opportunity to say, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Help me understand who you are. And hopefully you notice in me that I'm different than the rest of the world. And then, it's just a chain of events like that.
Yeah.
We end up becoming the light of the world because we're serving God and we're serving these people.
And you are life on life. When I think of times when I've had physical therapy or whatever, it's like you spend a lot of time with that person.
Yes, you do.
And so just kind of naturally you begin to share your life, and I love how you just beautifully described the shepherding of your customers or your clients that you're working with. So students come into your program. Give us a few of the stats that come with the exercise science program at Grace. How many students do you have? what's your space, look like? Where's it at on campus? Kind of orient us to that.
Okay.
And then outcomes, where do your students, where are they headed? Where are they going after they graduate from Grace?
Yeah, all right. So I had to look some of this up. But we have about 60 students right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
The program started in
6 years ago.
6 years. Wow.
We had about 12.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was like, we had 12, I think. We have two different concentrations. We have a third that's coming. And so we have a health and wellness concentration. And then we have a pre-physical therapy concentration. So we have a lot of students come in that are interested in hands-on learning, because that's what I try to push us towards. Hands-on, lab-based learning. I mean, it's exactly what you think someone who is ready to work with someone, a human. Yeah, let's try this. I have students, any career paths from physical therapy, occupational therapy, chiropractic, cardiac rehab, personal training, strength coach, health wellness coach, lifestyle manager. I mean, I'm probably missing some. There's a lot, like I said. And, sorry, help me.
Your space.
My space, yes.
Tell us
thank
about
you.
like your locate. Where are you at on campus, and what do you have?
Yeah, we're in the Gordon Health and Wellness Center, and we have a great space, actually. My administration has been wonderful to me. And
and some great donors
have
come alongside, which
phenomenal
is
donors. Because I'll tell you, we started with zero equipment.
Zero. Wait.
Yeah. We had nothing. So now we have 2 labs that are dedicated to exercise science. And so I kind of term them the scientific lab, and then our functional studio. And the functional studio looks just like a gym. That it's mocked up after. There's turf, there's a weight training area, there's all kinds of boxes that you can jump on and pull up bars. So I tried to design it as a modern space. And then our other scientific lab has a lot of palpation tables, and we have more sophisticated equipment.
You have, some of your newest equipment that
we got a Vo2 Max, and we can hook you up to a mask, and we can measure how much oxygen you're consuming during exercise or carbon dioxide that you're producing. And then we can even put a ECG on you and look at basically, so how fit are you? And that's always a good question. The students always volunteer to do that. And many people on campus actually come up to me and say, hey, we should do this. But it's a good time. We also, I'm in exercise cardiology right now, and we have 2 ECGs that are dedicated for that, which is a good experience. And we just did a lab the other day, and the students were amazed. Whoa, we did this. This is cool. So that's pretty much our space. I'm a program of one professor, but we get a lot done. And I do have 2 new new things on the docket. Can I talk about
Sure.
those?
Hey, it's up to you for sure.
So I was noticing that we have a lot of interest in nutrition. And so I've been working on developing a concentration for fitness and nutrition, because believe it or not, I have about 50% of the students come in and they want to go on to graduate school. And then the other half are like, I'm not really interested in graduate school, but I like fitness. And so I wanted to have this happy medium of options.
Yeah, sure.
And so nutrition has been a huge topic in our world. And so then I'm in the proposal process of working on this fitness and nutrition concentration, and then a nutrition minor, adding that as an option as well.
That's awesome. And that's been something that's been emphasized at Grace. For a long time, science has been significant, sending folks off to medical school, et cetera. But even more growing programs. Your program's one. We have a new program with medical imaging that's happening, and looking to add more health and wellness and science majors, because that's what our world needs. And as you said, it's a great way for us to serve people in their time of greatest need, whether it's an injury or an illness. And you're serving a physical need, but you're also serving a spiritual need. Those things are intertwined. And sometimes we try to think of them separately, but they are not. And that's a great thing you get to teach your students. So,
Yep.
So you said 60-ish
Yep.
majors. Okay.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's just amazing that the program has grown so much. Would you say a number of your majors are also athletes, or do you see quite a wide range?
Yeah. I mean, we have athletes, we have non-athletes. I mean, everybody's truly an athlete.
That's,
you know?
oh, there we go.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But
Good to know I'm an athlete.
Yeah.
I kind of feel, you know.
Yeah, I see we have a lot of athletes that are interested, but then there's plenty of people that are, I want to be a physical therapist, I want to be an occupational therapist, chiropractor, and they've decided that their education is priority over playing a sport at that moment.
Sure.
And I totally understand that.
Yep.
I balanced that schedule, and it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Well, let me ask you a couple questions personally that maybe you can help me out, and people can listen in and hear your advice, and maybe it'll help them as well. So I have a family, 3 kids, job, life's busy, right?
Yeah.
So I try to carve out about 3 times a week to work out for 45 minutes. It's probably not enough, but it's like what I have available.
Yeah.
So if I'm exercising 3 times a week for 45 minutes, what would you say are the optimal things I should focus on in those short windows I have to exercise?
Yeah, I would immediately. I think you should have something that challenges your heart. So you need to do some kind of cardio. And cardio can look like a lot of different things. Lately, I've really been challenging people to do what's fun to them. Don't think you have to just be on a treadmill. Do something that's fun. Go shoot hoops. Go run up and down a court. Like challenge yourself.
I've been doing mountain biking.
Yes.
So that, yeah.
Yeah. Do something that you enjoy, because why should exercise be punishment? It shouldn't. So let's enjoy what we're doing, and in that way you're like, wow, look what I accomplished. It's really, instead, there's nothing wrong with treadmill running. Like sometimes when it's 9 degrees outside, you really need to be inside. I also think though, on mountain biking, you're not going to get as much strength training, as far as like you need to do a little strength training, and you need to work on your movement, because you're in a fixed position in that way. You're always on your bike. You're usually in 1 or 2 positions, you're either standing or right. You're seated while biking heavily. Yeah. So you're really in a flexed position, like your hips are flexed, which is so similar to sitting. And you might end up with some hip flexor pain, and that's just because we're a sitting.
I have had like hip pain for sure. Yeah. Right.
So we are a sitting society now, because we spend all our time at computers, and we really need to be actually kind of training the other side and working on, okay, how am I standing? I could do a lot with you, basically. I'm really excited now because I'm thinking about
the things I should be working on.
Yeah, and you need to do core. We can do core work every day, but we shouldn't do core work that's on our back.
So tell us, like when I think core, I think sit-ups, but I know it's more than that.
Right.
So what is the core?
Oh, man. Okay, so imagine a canister. Okay, a coffee canister.
Yeah.
All right, it has a bottom, has a top, and the lid is movable. Well, the lid of the canister there is your diaphragm, and then the bottom is like the pelvic floor, and that's usually pretty stable. But then we have our back, and then our obliques, and then part of the muscle, like our lats are even in our back area. And so we basically have this sealed canister, but if you're weak in an area, you basically have a hole in that area of the canister, and energy spills out of that. So our job in core training is to try to make sure that canister is sealed, and that then when I go to do an activity, I don't have energy loss or spillage out. And it comes out in movement, believe it or not. It comes out in you can't squat right, or you can't lunge, and your push-up is bad. And when I say bad push-up, it's literally like you can't brace well enough to support yourself during a push-up.
To do a proper push-up in the correct position, because something is not strong.
Yeah. So then our activities that encourage proper core health are going to be things like planks, push-ups. They really do. Like, well, we can modify some of them and progress you back into a healthy core. Now, I like a good, they kind of call it a wood chop or a lift. And so you're in a lunge, and then you're basically using like either a kettlebell, a ball, or a band. And you're in a lunge, and you're crossing your body and trying not to make make
Gotcha.
these like, adjustments, wavy adjustments with your body. And you're just trying to learn how to get yourself in a position to hold that stable. Now that cross movement is like running.
Mm-hmm.
When we run, we're in that
Yeah.
alternating flow of legs and arms. So that is really valuable. Now you're on a mountain bike, but you still need that because you're going to teeter back and forth on those two wheels.
Sure. And I think sometimes the temptation for probably anybody, but guys especially, is like, how much can I lift, rather than, like you just said, like work on that stability
Correct.
part. Mm-hmm. I've never had the problem of how much can I lift, so that's not a temptation for me.
Yeah.
All right, another question. I'm getting to that point where I can just like feel I'm not as agile.
Okay.
Like I can run okay straight, but I start going side to side.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I can beat my kids in a race going straight. For me, it's all about my kids.
Yes.
Like, how long can I beat them and stuff?
Yep.
I can beat them in a race going straight, but we start going in circles like around the house.
Yeah.
My 5-year-old, I can't like make the turns the way they do. So like as I get older, what are some things I need to do to help with, I don't know if you'd call that functional movement, or just being able to stay flexible, change directions, beat my kids in races around the house, essentially.
Do you stretch at all?
I do, yes. Okay. Maybe I don't do it correctly, though. So what would stretching look like if I do that 5 minutes a day?
Well, let me ask you this. Can you touch your toes?
Let's see. Let's see if I can do it. Okay, so no, I can't.
That's a negative. All right, so that's a problem right there.
Okay.
So that would reflect to me that you have, that no wonder you're not experiencing some agility. You don't have full range of motion of your hips. And I'm like, well, that's one area that we could attack right away. Now, it's not uncommon in guys to be tight in the hamstrings. And it's not uncommon for them to have a need for stretching their glutes. Also, they get really tight in the hips. And I think that basically is where your problem is. I bet you we could really give you some pain if we tried some of these.
Some good pain,
some
right?
Good pain.
That's what I need.
Yeah. So practicing a movement actually helps a movement. So if you're saying that I can't do some of these agile movements, how are we practicing those? And so even just a plyometric or a speed ladder would be an easy way for us to work on that quickness, because a speed ladder doesn't have to be forwards.
It can be side to side.
Side to side. Or I know this is interesting, but I've been watching a lot of fitness posts lately, and some of them are just creating these obstacle courses for older folks. Now, you're not an old folk.
I feel like I'm getting there, though.
But
yes.
Yeah, and one of the things is that they just set up some planks that you like. I probably don't know some of these terms in the fitness world, but there's like a plank that you can set up, and then it's literally just an inch off the ground, and you wouldn't believe how much that challenges your core and your agility.
To be able to walk across that plank.
You have to walk this plank and walk in these angles and try really hard to, or you do it backwards, or you do it to the sideways, and it's just opening up it's really the neuromuscular system that we're dealing with there.
Okay. That's good. Well,
we're geeking out over here.
After this, I'm going to be getting some actual written down things to work on here. Because again, beating my kids in basketball and races is priority of my health goals right now. Okay, last personal question. So I struggle with all the big three: sleep, nutrition, working out. At least I hear those are the big three. There may be more to it than that. But of those, from your expert opinion, which would be the one to like try to tackle first? As far as, I don't know about most important, but if I'm struggling in those three areas, what would you say? Hey, work on this one, and then we'll move to the next one. I
would probably say sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of new science coming out about sleep. Seems like.
Well, just if it's just missing an hour of sleep can really wreck some of your brain waves. Like it can really disturb your energy and your ability. And so then obviously your workout will probably not be as good. And then your nutrition choices will probably not be as good.
Usually at about 9 o'clock at night. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there's a lot of evidence too that says if you make some good nutritional choices, your sleep improves. And some people follow this method of after 7 o'clock, they don't eat anything. And they're like, I sleep a lot better.
Yeah.
You know?
That is true for me if I can discipline myself to do that.
Right. But sometimes, you're on the go and your family you don't eat till 8. Okay. You don't want to not eat. But yeah, so I would focus on the sleep. You're right. The science coming out on that is huge lately, and more research needs to be done.
Yeah.
You know?
Which means you should come to Grace and get in the exercise science program and
we'll
go
talk about
learn more. So, all right, if somebody's interested in the program, they're an alum, they're a prospective student, and they want to hear more or reach out to you, what's the best way to find you and find the program?
I believe you can find me on the Grace website.
Just go there and search your name probably, and it'll
just
pop
search
right up.
my name. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And which I've done, and I think your email pops up. So if people want to reach out to you and ask a question or come check out the new space, would welcome them to do so. And I just want to say thank you. You've done a wonderful job building this program.
Thanks.
It's become one of, if not the fastest program we've had in the last 6 years.
Wow.
And just amazing to see the growth and the impact and the way that you do it with the right mindset of building into students spiritually, as well as teaching them the functional things they need to know to be successful. So thank you for joining us on the podcast and for teaching us a little bit about exercise science.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
And thank you for all of you for listening to the Grace Story podcast. Music was written and produced by Dr. Wally Brath, Assistant Professor of Worship Arts at Grace College. And thanks to our co-producers, Andrew Palladino and Rick Neer. And if you could do us a huge favor and rate and comment, share this podcast wherever you retrieved it from, we would be so grateful. Until next time, live your best Grace Story today.